Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian, joined as always by my good mate Lockie. And look, unfortunately, just like that, Carlton's undefeated start to the 2023 season has come to an end at the hands of the Adelaide Crows in an awful showing to kick off gather round, the first ever game of that particular special round. And look, Lockie, you're a bit more optimistic and confident probably headed into this game as I was, not to try and throw any shade or anything like that. And
No,
I guess
go ahead.
there's been a bit of an emotional response from the fans, and particularly myself. And so I really kind of want to get your thoughts and perspective on this, because how everything played out, like I've had a couple of issues going into this season and a couple of things I was a bit apprehensive about, even going into this game. And it all kind of came to a head and was on show in this game. So knowing that you're a bit more level-headed than me, I kind of want to get your reaction and your thoughts and where you're kind of sitting with Carlton, the team, everything that's going on. Very broad perspective. Lockie, I guess how you're feeling after that loss to the Adelaide Crows.
I hope you're not expecting too much optimism. I'm definitely got a bit of a different tone to what I did last week. Yes, a little bit too cocky in looking back on it. I feel like we have mentioned over the last few weeks that we still have so many questions and we're so unsure about where we sit. And yeah, I'm now even more confused. Probably like this is the most confused I've been about where this team is at that I can remember. Because the first 4 weeks of the season were not great, but we were winning. So how could I not be at least optimistic that, well, you know, if we're not really putting it all together now, why can't we do it first of the season? So it should have been clearer that a performance like this was on the cards. So all I can do is hope that this is just something that we're going to put in the past.
And that's kind of, I think, how every fan's feeling at the moment. I know that's me, where last week on the build-up show, I tried to be a bit more optimistic and taking that opinion of I'm sick of being a bit doom and gloom and thinking that like this loss is going to happen. I was trying to like think, okay, we are getting the wins. We're doing enough. I'm seeing little bits of improvement. Let's just try and get positive. But then, this kind of loss happens it's less about the margin. It's all about the performance and what we saw. And it was everything that we had issues with going into it. And look, we're going to talk about everything. We're going to cover absolutely everything. Cool. Where I kind of want to start off is reflecting on that match build-up, the things that we're wanting to see, and I guess diving into it that way, because I kind of want to selfishly start with what I was talking about, which is normally what I like to do. But I guess my kind of take and my main focus was don't get beaten with what we know. And that was, I mentioned the Crows' strong post-clearance stats, that they were that burst from stoppage, high work rate, they dominate those ground balls, and that this game was so heavy on the midfield. We need to win it there, because if we don't, they're really good at taking it away on those ground balls and moving it. So I guess kind of and we'll talk about the midfield in a bit more depth, but I guess kind of a little bit of a view on getting beaten by the stats that I kind of approached with you in saying, because I guess going with that positive mindset, you were going, where are they going to beat us? I presented a little bit. What are your thoughts on what did transpire in that aspect?
I mean, I can't get past talking about the midfield. Like that's where my mind is wanting to jump in straight away. So do
you want to just go to it and we'll get back to everything else? Because we can do it. We can. We'll be here for about half an hour on the midfield, because it's a big talking point. We lost the battle considerably. Couldn't win the contested ball or win a clearance. We've probably only looked good in that Geelong game so far. So how are you feeling about the midfield? What are the problems? How are we fixing it? Let's deep dive into this.
Players are too samey. I think we've been saying it each week that it's like we're getting the wins, but not sure about it. It's too samey for me. We're like, we need to get a Zach Fisher type in there, and Zach Fisher isn't the Zach Fisher type. So Walsh came in, and I thought he was one of our better players, and maybe that's just because he's a bit different to these guys, because Cripps, Hewitt there's something wrong there. The midfield. I'm not normally the guy that's like, let's try something crazy, but like I need to see something different in that midfield. Give me someone next week with some good CBAs that isn't this core that we've seen to start this season, because it's not good enough.
Yeah, I guess I kind of want to press you on this a little bit more, because this is a midfield that apart from maybe an Ed Kerno, like that's what we've had as our best midfield on paper. It's what we saw for some chunks last season, whether some personnel were out, but it was kind of like, that's the core of what we think is good. Obviously we've been saying we want a few other players in there, but if we want this big contested side of things, like that's our one wood, as a David King would kind of say. Where does that sit with you? Because like, how are we doing things differently? Should we have to do things differently when those are our best midfielders? Where are the problems lying, apart from just it being a different personnel that you want in there? Because if we're winning the clearances with our best clearance players, then kind of everything else should fall into it. But if those players aren't winning the clearances, will a faster player or someone else change things? Where are you kind of seeing that aspect of it? Because we just weren't getting our hands on the ball, which was the biggest issue.
No, you're right. In this instance, that was a big issue, but it wasn't the only issue, because when we are clearing it, it's only one aspect. The way that, like, I've never really gone off on this podcast, and I'm not going to go off yet.
Oh, please.
No, it's not there. We're recording this on Monday evening. If we were doing this like Friday morning, maybe I would. And this isn't a new thing for us, but the way that we are going inside 50 is like disgraceful. And so even if we are clearing the ball, like the way that Adelaide put the ball to their players' advantage basically every time, it's almost like we don't care to put it to advantage. It's like, if it's in there, it's in there. And sometimes Charlie will take a hanger, sometimes TDK will take a hanger. That is just, if that is the game plan, I want to throw up, because that genuinely feels like it is. Like, tell me that isn't the game plan. Just get it in there.
I mean, that's half the issue, and we will touch on the coaching later. But it feels as if I don't know if they don't know what the game plan is. I don't know what the idea is, because we've been sold that we're a heavy contested side. Why I've got the big balls in there. But as we're saying, like, it's very one pace that when it's not going right, which at times it hasn't, North cleaned us up, didn't look good against Richmond. Their efficiency, I think, let them down. They could have easily killed us with the way they were moving the ball through the midfield. So this isn't something new that we're reacting to and we're overreacting to. This is something we've seen bit of last year and particularly this year. It's kind of all just come to a head from this game. And there's a lack of work rate from that midfield mix. We get hurt on the spread. I think players are getting sucked into the contest. You're seeing it. How many times did Adelaide have whether it was some of their midfielders or high half forwards push up? Everyone goes to the ball. As soon as they break out, we just can't go with them. And so when we're not winning that contested ball, which we think we should be with that mix, it's everything else. And then when different things that you're speaking about there is when we did win the ball, it was fumbling, which just put more pressure onto us. It doesn't seem like there's a purpose when we do win the ball that we've got, okay, I know this player's going to be here. This guy's going to come running and I can get the handball out. I'm under pressure. I'm fumbly. I handball to another guy under even more pressure. He's indecisive. And I don't know if that's, again, is it personnel? Is it that these guys haven't gelled a lot this season? Is it Hewitt's underdone? Kennedy underdone? Walsh obviously played quite well, but his first game of the year. But there's so many questions, and I'm not sure I have answers to it. And touching then again on the inside 50, because this was another big issue I think everyone's having. And some of it can be explained by us having so much pressure on the ball carrier that I don't have time to look inside 50. And so it is just a rushed kick. But it sometimes, again, it feels as if when we do have a bit of time and space, we're not even looking for it. It's just, that's all my mind's thinking. I'm getting it into and hoping that we're just going to get bailed out by a big key forwards. And that's kind of what's been happening even when we have played and won games this season. Harry and Charlie have been bailing us out with these big contested marks. All of a sudden, that doesn't necessarily work as much this week. And look what happens. I guess, what are your other issues with this midfield? And do you have any kind of solutions for it at all?
Oh, God, no. God, no. Because, again, like you said, it's just so many questions. about, and a lot of it is like the personnel, like you said, or is it the personnel, or is it the game plan, or is it the game plan and then the decision making of the players? Like, are we? What's the reason why we're so hesitant to just try and hit a lead, or or why the forwards aren't wanting to lead? Is it the spacing of other guys? Is it the work rate of Harry and Charlie? That doesn't seem likely to me. It's all just questions, and I wish we could just be inside and understand these answers. Because is Vossi looking at the way that we're going inside 50 and going, they're not executing what I'm looking for? Or is he going, well, they're executing it, but it's just not converting? I don't know.
Yeah. Putting you in the hot seat, I know it's hard. So this is not a conclusive answer. If you were to have to not fence it and say it's personnel, and whether that's personnel on the park not being up to it, or personnel making the poor decisions, not executing game plan, or it's coaching and structure, where would you, gun to your head, what would you be selecting there? Because it's a hard one, and I'll put myself under the pump and have to answer it afterwards as well.
This is the first week that I feel like it is coaching.
Yeah.
Because I just cannot see, like, I'm not saying that the personnel and everything is perfect.
Yes.
But I need someone to tell me what we're trying to do, if it isn't just get it long or get it forward at all cost.
No, I kind of agree. And I agree with you on both points. Clearly, I'm not sure the list is right. And clearly we've got injuries, and there's a lot of different things that as this season's progressing, there are issues definitely with them. And I think that as we touch on, and we'll get into the coach talk a little bit later in more depth, some pressure does need to come onto these players, because like, how many coaches can you have, and all of that chatter, mentality, all of that piece. But when the same things keep happening and it doesn't seem like things are getting addressed, it does feel like there's big question marks going on to those coaches. And I'm very excited to get into that chat. But the last thing I'll kind of maybe touch on, there's probably two things I want to talk about this midfield at the moment. And one of them, while we talk about this transitional play, because that's been poor. Obviously, there's the defensive side of this midfield that got absolutely torched. Adelaide just showed us a lesson. The high half forwards in this forward, the smalls, because I think that the key tools are doing enough. We know they're superstars. Any issues, I'll say, is structure or coaching on their part, because if they're not getting to the right spaces,
I agree.
Then I'm putting it on the coaches there. So let's talk about the others. And one thing I'm noticing a little bit, and I'd love to get maybe your perspective and your thoughts, whether you kind of agree. I'm worried that maybe our high half forwards are pushing up a little too high. And I'll throw Zach Fisher under the bus in this one, because a fair few weeks we've been seeing a few of his possessions super high up the ground. Now, I'm not sure if that's directive. I'm not sure what the answer is. There's been times that I've found he moves very high up the ground. Silvani's high up the ground. Even the other smalls, they're pushing up to try and influence this contest. And clearly that's not working, because all of a sudden we'll win possession, stream forward. We have no options. There is no one ahead of the ball. Now, either that's work rate, they're not being able to push and move and get into the right spots, or they're too high and they're not in those positions. And there's just a few of those things, because there's lack of spread, there's lack of options from these smalls and these high half forwards to create options. And then when they're there in the forward line and they are deep, what are our leading lanes in the forward line?
Yeah.
Like we talk about when we're transitioning the ball from defense and there's no one moving, and it's the whole thing. And is this coaching? Like, what is going on? The structure seems poor, and I don't want to just sound like I'm overreacting to this, but it's been what it has been, and it's all season. It's just kind of finally hurt us. Like, what are your kind of thoughts on that? Because the amount of times we're not there and there's an outnumber and we've just bombed it forward, and Harry's trying to take a mark over 4 blokes. There's no options when we've got it. And so like, sometimes I feel sorry for the midfield when they do burst with the ball, because you look up and you see, oh, there's no one. But then other times they're just kicking it to anywhere. So it's a bit of both. But I guess what's your kind of perspective on how the forwards are moving in that forward line and pushing around the ground? Because even when they are up, sorry to just keep adding on to this, so many streams of consciousness, but even when they are pushing up, well, they're not affecting the contest. So it's like, well, they're just, everyone's in no man's land. It seems like at the moment, it's just confusion all around.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I hadn't kind of had that as much as a thought like in this game or over the past few weeks, because I've been so focused on your second point about like the leading lanes and the clogged up nature of our forward 50.
Bad, man.
It doesn't make sense that both of those two things can be true, but they're not. I agree that they're not impacting that contest enough. So why are they out there if that's how we're going to roll with it? Oh man, there's just so many questions. And the one point that I just wanted to make, and this is now my stream of consciousness, not necessarily on this point.
Yeah.
With all of this uncertainty that we still have, and I think maybe this is why I've been so optimistic to start this season, where it's like I don't know where we fall in this in the spectrum of this season and looking at other teams. And you could call me the most delusional man on the planet right now, but I'm going to say this because I actually believe it. I think we could still win the premiership this year. And I think we could obviously absolutely miss finals too.
Yeah.
The where we are by the end of this season, I have zero fucking clue. And if we make the grand final, I'm not going to be the most shocked man, because like there is things here that can work if we put them together. And in this game, I hope you don't want to talk about positives in this, because I don't have them.
Yeah.
That's
see, look at this. The tables are turning. You're giving me the inspirational speech halfway through this, and I'm feeling a little bit more up and about, because that's the kind of perspective I was trying to take last week, and trying to get a bit more positivity, I guess, going and heading into this game, where, like, if you just look at the talent, like high-end talent on this list, it's there. Clearly, the bottom rung is when that underperforms, when things aren't going right, that hurts us. And what hurt us in this game was the top talent wasn't there, particularly that midfield. Clearly, that was any blind Freddy could have watched that game and told you the issue and why we lost that football game. It was not hard. Fixing it's the issue. And it's why I do kind of agree with that point, as delusional fans as we are, that as badly as it is and as badly as things have been, when we kind of know the issue but maybe don't exactly know how to fix it, it can turn around. Like all of a sudden, something happens, tweaks are made, that midfield fixes it, and you're like, yeah, well, Hewitt's a gun, Kennedy's a gun, we've got Walsh, we've got Cripps, mate, we've got some players around here. All of a sudden, Fisher starts to play well. Like, it can turn, and that's why probably we're so angry and frustrated, because we can see why it can turn. I think you kind of nailed it.
And that's why, like, all I think you might have said this at the start, and people are saying this, that they're not surprised that this happened. Yes. Will you also have been not surprised if we won by 50? That wouldn't have been surprising either.
If we turned it on and got like you were wanting. Yeah. So, and the thing you wanted to see before we started like the game was a 4-quarter performance. And we were at those two levels where it was genuinely, this game, we lose by 60 or we completely dominate and win by 60. Sure. There was kind of no in between. And unfortunately, it's gone the other way. And again, this is another could go either way. And it's kind of a thing I'm hoping for, but thing I'm frustrated with. God, I can't even speak at this stage. They've got me so fired up. Like, is that, like, maybe this is the wake-up call we needed, where we weren't dragging these wins across. And, like, the playing group have to look themselves. But how many fucking wake-up calls does this group need? How many wake-up calls does this coaching group need? Like, last year, mate, there was like 7 games in that season you could point at, particularly at the end of that season, that are wake-up calls. You had all preseason to sort this out, and we've come out and we're worse than we were last year. So, like, it's hard. I'm trying to rattle with where I am positively or negatively, and to go into the negative headspace, because I think this is where we kind of all are.
Because we're not there yet.
We're not positive yet.
Let's head there.
So let's go and let's self-destruct, and let's get ourselves into some kind of mental institution at the end of this, because we're going to need some more therapy. But maybe that's what this episode is for. And
yep, I need it.
I guess we are going to try and fix a lot of this potentially at selection and build up later in this week when we do our build up episode. But what has got me into this negative headspace, and it's why I tweeted this at a stage where I'm looking at what if you were to fix this simply by bringing in personnel, because that's kind of like the easiest way when you look at something. Well, what I'm working with isn't working. So can I bring something else in to fix it? I'm looking at what we're bringing in, what we can bring in, and it's not making me super positive, Lockie. And I'm not sure where you sit with this. So I'll kind of pivot to you before I go on my big rant, because I've got a big talking point on this. But like, we're talking about a Bins to potentially come in who's looked pretty good in the twos. Maybe a Kemp, maybe a Carroll. Like, the names that are getting thrown out don't necessarily excite me. Where are you sitting in the fix it with guys coming in, or fix it with what we've got and how that mix works? Because you've said yourself earlier, you need the mix changed. Are you bringing guys in? Where are you sitting right now on this Monday night?
I'm probably going to lead off with a bit of a fence sit and let you do your thing. Because the one comment that I want to say on the matter is just kind of the social commentary around this. Where you got like a record amount of questions back to your questions tweet, which is great. We love the engagement.
That's good. Good engagement.
And so many people, and we do this sometimes, love to look at individuals and be like, why are we persisting with this guy? When do we give up on this guy? You're going to run through it now. Like, for example, not attacking here, but just one example, at Wombat Lifts. I'd really like to hear your honest opinions on Zach Fisher. Substandard efforts week in, week out. Why do we continue to accept this shit? I think every week on this show, we've said that we aren't happy with what we're getting from him.
Yeah.
But you cannot tell me that there's someone that we could bring in and we would definitely get a better output than what he's giving us.
Yeah.
Tell me the player.
And that's what's hurting me right now. And this is kind of what we've been talking about. I think everyone can agree right now there is maybe potentially even 5 to 10 players that this season have not been peak form, what we expect. And in a perfect world, they're playing twos and someone else has come in. The issue, and I'll give myself a bit of a plug here. I've been
Didn't expect that.
Oh, of course, mate. The head gets bigger by the day. If we're watching this on YouTube, someone needs to keep taking a photo every week, because by the end of the year, mate, the whole screen's just going to be me. No, you're not even going to fit into this thing, unfortunately. But I've been very fortunate in being selected to head up one of the seats in what Pommy and Oz has made oh my God, I've forgotten the bloody name of it. The selection table. That's a great plug.
You should have led with this.
We'll cut that out. We'll cut that out. In the selection table, which has myself, Pommy, Paolo, and Lecdog, some great Carlton minds in there. I don't know how I've managed to sneak my way into that one, but I'll take it. I'll take it, Lockie. And we're going to be going through every Tuesday night. We're going to be going through these selection headaches. And so I've had to really deep dive into this dilemma this week, because I have to make sure I don't look like an idiot. And my biggest issue is maybe this is dumb, but I put out like the TikTok the video this week that some may have seen. So follow us at
viral, by the way,
of like the Simpsons meme where Homer's got the barbecue and it's Adelaide, and then he looks down and it's a complete mess and it's Carlton. And it's like, why doesn't mine look that? And trying to look at, rebuild team, all of that. Adelaide look like what we want to be right now, even though anything could happen. Who knows? We might turn it around. It was a bit of a joke. Anyway, looking at this, I've gone, okay, like if we're trying to build what I think the best of, say, like in Adelaide, using as an example, okay, they've got the midfield, they've got some nice half forwards. Like, how are we looking at this? Best players right now. And there were so many gaps. And so I was then trying to go, okay, who can fit into these gaps? A lot of it was that half forward and maybe a couple of midfield rotation spots. Those are my big dilemmas. I think defense, everyone fit, you've got options. It's that midfield, small half forwards is clearly that issue right now.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm looking at it, it's like, okay, well, it's Fisher and Silvani. It's maybe a Jack Martin. Well, okay, well, we don't like what they're bringing right now. Who can come in? And it's no one. Like, it's Jackson Bins, it's Jack Carroll, it's Josh Honey, who we've seen. Who else is there, Lockie? And this is my dilemma where, like, I would love to drop Fish, chuck him in the twos and say, mate, work it out. But who are we bringing in? And then does that disadvantage you even more? because the guy you've brought in is going to bring a third of the shit that Zach Fish is bringing right now. And even on that, while I'm continuing this massive discussion, is like I've just touched on those high half forwards. If I've said they're potentially not in the right areas, but if we're not winning the clearance and the mix there isn't right, we're not able to get that separation. I've talked about the handballs to a guy under pressure. We're not getting the spread. We're not using the ball well in the midfield. Then can you blame the high half forwards for not being able to get involved in the game? If our midfield aren't getting it out nicely to the rest of the game, to the rest of the players out there, that half forward position is incredibly difficult to play. If Cripper's fumbling a handball, he's under pressure, handballing it to Fish who's under pressure. There's no space created anywhere and no one's winning. So I think that the way we're currently playing, the issues that we're having, it's a flow-on effect. Everywhere's not playing well because of the other. And I'm not sure how to fix it. It's an issue. It is definitely an issue. And I'm not trying to say that that's fine and those players are escaped from criticism because of that. Just another perspective I'm trying to throw in there, because there's just you can't count on your hands how many issues we currently have.
No, that was a very well put little rant there. There's not. I think basically, if I think about this team that we put out there on the weekend, I think that's pretty much the best 22 players that we have healthy right now that we could have put in there. Like someone like Dow, I think, is someone that could come in and has the potential to like put in a performance or whatever that would be good. But we love guys like Binns. We're excited about what they're going to be, but how can you expect him to come in? I don't think he's going to be able to even do what Hollands has done. So, yeah, and I agree with you. A lot of people are a lot of non-Carlton people are pointing at Harry. Yeah, that's not where the big problems are for me. It's not Harry and Charlie that I'd be pointing the finger at.
And you kind of segued a little bit to what I wanted to rant on a touch, which was saying that, we're bringing, like, our options right now are bringing in a guy who's never played AFL football before, who's like, what, 18? Now, this goes to a further dilemma I have currently with kind of the list and where we're at. And I mentioned this off air after our Richmond game. I went very negative after we spoke about that. And I was trying to push that to one side. I didn't feel like it was worth bringing it up. And maybe this isn't the time. Maybe this is going too much down one thing. But like with our list and with development right now, I have an issue. Like how Hollands, how Cowan have been playing. They've been good. I have no issues with that. The deeper issue is that we should not be having to play these guys right now. Our list should be further advanced, that we are not having to play first-year players. These guys should be able to develop in the twos and have to bust their ass to get in. And that creates the competition. Zach Fish is having to compete with someone else. We've got those things. And unfortunately, I'm starting to get very negative and worried that all of this stems back to, and it's not just drafting, it's development. I'm not putting the blame on anyone, because you can blame so many different people for this. And this isn't a go at sauce, but this is that right now, from like 2016 to 2019, the development of the players that we've selected that should be starting to be those 23, 24, I think, that kind of age group, starting to become stars and really pushing into this team. I'm going to rattle off with the names of everyone we drafted. Tell me if we've got enough from this group right now, and that if this is potentially a list issue that has caused some of the kind of problems, one of the reasons. Let's go into it. So in 2016, Petreski-Seaton, not on the list. Fisher. And then later on, and some of the later picks I understand. You got McCready, Paulson, Kerr, all not on the list. 17, some high picks here in Dow and O'Brien. TDK, Schumacher, and Gartlett. 18, Walsh, obviously, great pick. Stocker, Finbar, O'Dwyer, Ben Silvani. And then in 2019, Kemp and Philp with some high-range picks. After that, I think you can kind of give a bit of leeway to the Durdens and Carroll to an extent. And then past that, I think they're still a little bit young to go too hard on them. But that group there, for whatever reason, not getting enough out of those, and you're not going to nail all the picks. You're never going to get it done. But I think at the moment, it's Walsh, And then you got question marks over Fisher and De Koning still. And then kind of everyone else, your Dow, O'Brien, Kemp, it's still like they're even further down the question mark of like, I don't even know if they're close to 22. Some of them potentially even career done. Those guys not pushing into this team has caused us right now to be having to look at things. And it's like, we're forcing to play these 18-year-olds where we shouldn't be in this position. And I think if we'd hit a few more on these, whether that's development-wise or whatever, like look at the players they are. They're the pace. Like you've got SPS, Fisher. Like there's so much in that's meant to be these elements that we're missing right now. And it leads us to the point of like, what do we do at selection and how do we get ourselves out of this? And yeah, I don't know. So I don't really have much of a point apart from that or a question. It was just,
no.
It's depressing reading when you kind of look at that section, 2015 draft aside.
I think it's a really good point, and I'm glad you brought it up because, yeah, I guess 2015 kind of masks it a bit.
Yeah.
And people point at that year and it's like, oh, look at that. Like it's beautiful, which it is. Yeah. No, I think you've hit the nail on the head. God, wish we had LDU.
Be nice. It'd be nice. And it's weird as well because on some of those years,
again, but yeah.
some of those ones we've even gotten guys in from those years. Like Setterfield was one of them. We've got Chera in. So we're still trying to bring those age groups in, but it's definitely a deficiency right now. And maybe that goes to another point. And it was kind of something else I wanted to look at as far as what I wanted to see from this game. And it was intensity from the start. I wanted a hot start. We've been starting slow and sluggish throughout this season. Last year, Adelaide came out hot. It was gather round. We knew they were going to be up and about. People have been calling it their grand final. It was definitely a big occasion. We didn't come out in that first quarter. It was, basically
training drill.
Game done. 38 points down. We had 67 less disposals, 8 less inside 50s, 8 less clearances, 51 less uncontested possessions. 12 players from Adelaide had more disposals than our highest disposal getter at that stage, which I think it was like 5 for us. And if you screenshot the disposal count at that, you had to scroll so far down, it was disgusting. Looking at this, looking at mentality, looking at all of that, what are you kind of putting down our slow starts? And like, how do we fix it, Lockie? I know I'm pushing all of these hard issues on you, and I'm not necessarily looking for answers. But even if you've just got some sort of ideas around this discussion, because it's kind of frustrating knowing that we even mentioned, mate, this needs to be a revenge game from last year. This is the game that potentially cost us finals last year. Let's see if the boys have learned something. And they didn't. Fogarty gave us a bath. Keys exploited us. It was the same shit that happened last year, except the Crows are better, so it was a bigger margin. Like, what are you putting these slow starts down to, and the fact that we're not able to seem to fix the issues that we should be ready hot to go and fix these problems?
I'm really excited to hear what your take is, because I really don't have anything aside from I guess like we spoke about last week. It was like there was so many reasons for us to come out hot and so many reasons for us to be amped up. So maybe it's the way that this group gets motivated is just not there. And the revenge game, I don't know, maybe that's just not part of their mentality, even though we think that it should be. And in terms of how we change it for next week, no fucking clue. No fucking clue. Because my default is to go, all right, what's not working? Motlop had a pretty crappy game, I thought. Midfield, there's something missing there. Let's start him at the first centre bounce and just see what happens with 2 big bodies. But again, that could be even worse. So how's that for Grim?
And that's kind of the annoying thing of like where we're sitting right now. And you nailed it earlier where you said like this could all turn around next week. The boys come out, give a response, which I hate that terminology because like it almost makes me angry of like, you shouldn't have to give a fucking response, boys. Like we're past this. We're an older team. We should be better. And it's mentality. Like I'm worried that we're scared of the occasion, that there is something in this group that shits themselves when there is an expectation, when there is this this is our moment. We've got a revenge for last year. Remember everything that happened. This is it. And we just freeze. Like, I don't know. I don't know how you fix that. Because that's what's been happening. Like you're saying, like that's what happened last year. Those big games, we didn't show up. Those big moments, we crumble. We still don't 100% know if we're up at 3/4 time or with 5 minutes to go, whether we can hold on, whether we've got it. And whether the coaching aspect of it has understood enough to fix this, whether the list has solved enough problems of on-field leadership, of fixing the holes in the game plan or whatever it is. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And I wish we did. And it's insane because I wanted the tackle pressure. And obviously we win the tackles because we didn't have the ball. Like that is
exactly
obviously a factor. But it's odd that we had so many inside 50 tackles. We won them 17-2 inside. Now, maybe they're skewed as well because Adelaide was so efficient. They didn't need to tackle in their forward line. There was no chance to do it. But, like, what? How do we have 17 inside 50 tackles and not capitalize on that? It just seems odd, and I don't know how we're fixing it, but we really need to come out and actually do something. And yeah, it's so depressing because all my head just thinks is like, is that it? Like, is this all we are? And I hope it's more than that.
And I'm so glad you slipped it in there because there is such a. Are we just going to call it? Like, are we just going to call it? We're going to have a massive win next week. Like, it's just bound to happen. It's either going to be that or it's going to be a 100-point loss. Like, how can I have no idea what to expect? This is the furthest thing that I have from clarity on what this team is. Insane. And the other part of it, which is masked, and I was kind of trying to be optimistic throughout all of this. We could be 0-5. We could have lost that draw. GWS Cogs could have not done that thing. We were sitting there in the stands at North being like, oh, fuck, it's only 4 goals now, even though there was no time left.
Yeah.
Anything could have happened.
Don't get paid a couple of the free kicks that were there. And you never know what happens. Do we get a couple of that? Did Geelong come back and win that one? Do we make a couple of mistakes? And like,
I almost did.
I get you. I totally get you. And it could go either way. And I'm hoping, optimistic, glass half full on the table right now. I'm praying that while we've had some losses, some bad losses in maybe circumstance way, you look at last year, in ways we didn't show up, this is probably the first time that we haven't got those goals back and made it look like we just lost that one by a few goals. Oh, well, we were up and we just lost it. Oh, this was an embarrassment. And it was on the big stage. So many people were watching it. The media can come for us this week. Maybe this is that final one that this group needed, that this coaching group needed to go, okay, what we're doing here isn't working. We're not just scraping in and papering over the cracks. We're going for this. The issue is I wish we had done that previously, and I thought that if we could turn it around, that would be it. But like, this has to be that line in the sand moment of we don't accept what we're currently doing. And this can't happen again. Like, I can accept a loss. I can cop a loss to Adelaide. I just can't accept it in the manner that it happened. But I guess let's pivot. Let's talk about coaching, because this is another section that people are talking about. It's probably the first time there's been a bit more heat on the coaching group and on Vossi and question marks. I was seeing people actually ask the question whether they were being super serious of like sack the coach or not, but it was questions being asked of like, is this the man to lead us forward? Like, how are we sitting and feeling with it? I'll put you in the hot seat. How are you feeling with the coaching group? And how do we evolve and kind of sort some things out at the moment?
I think it's definitely okay to be questioning it at this stage. I'm definitely not fully off Vossi or anything like that. There's no way that I don't think we should be at least sticking out with him this season. Absolutely. There's just still too many question marks for me to be definitive on it at all. How can I judge? Like, I can't say with 100% certainty that the game plan that he is envisioning and that he knows we can achieve with the right level of health and buy-in isn't a premiership one. I can't say that's not the case because there's too many variables right now. So I'll have to look back on it once we've got a bigger piece, I guess. What about you?
No, I think it is probably it's not too early to question. It's probably too early to come up with an actual conclusion just because you haven't seen enough. The questioning comes really from seeing what other teams are doing with lists that we probably perceive as less. There's definitely less star power to it, and how other teams are playing, and how other teams have maybe like in Adelaide have seemed so good so far. And obviously it can turn. They can fade away and be garbage the rest of the year. We can all of a sudden ascend, and no one's worried about this game, and everyone's thinking, "Gee, remember round 5 when we all lost our heads?"
That was weird.
Who knows? But the questioning comes from that. It's seeing St Kilda with Ross Lyon. It's seeing what Essendon are being able to do and get a scalp over Melbourne and play good football with a new coach, and being like, why aren't we doing this? What is going on where we started last season so well? The midfield dominance was there. And then about halfway through that season, all of a sudden the midfield dried up. And then we've had a preseason and we thought so many little things would be addressed. We've come out and we're probably worse than we were last year in a lot of aspects. As we're saying that, there's a lot of questions. Things aren't being answered. Things aren't happening. And so I think from that, you've got to question the coach because, well, okay, and we'll talk a bit on selection, like Gov. Obviously, there was some injury that was getting carried there. He's got tightness. It's aware that something was going on. And, like, why is Plowman the guy in the emergencies in case? He should not be the guy that comes in for Gov. Would you agree with that? Would you have said, if you're getting rid of an intercept defender, it's Kemp or it's Dirt and it's someone else, it's not Plowman?
For sure,
so
would be Kemp for me.
Why are we making those weird decisions? I disagree, and I don't like the fact that we tried to just fix the losing a Doherty, a halfback and run, and we didn't bring in a halfback and run. Like, we didn't bring in a Chincotta. We're not going like for like, and it's been a bit that way with the midfield. Okay, Hewitt goes out. Okay, we'll just go with the same mix. We'll go with whoever's left. Okay, Kennedy goes out. Hewitt's back in. We still haven't replaced what we thought was that midfield piece. It seems like and maybe I'm reading way too much into this. It kind of seems for me, if we had this structured plan exactly how it goes, as soon as there's an injury, you take out and you replace it with the same person who plays that role. But at times it seems we're moving too many pieces around and just hoping that the personnel can get it done. And then, obviously the midfield issues. Is it structure? What's going on? We're not changing things up. We're too late to react to things that's going on. We don't seem to be getting the best out of certain players. The forward line mix, all of those things are issues, and we need to sort it out. Like, we want to play this contested brand, but our rucks stink. We're not fixing that. So how are we how are we going to win this contested ball if the ruck can't tap it to our midfielders? Like, there's just so many issues. And I hate to just sit here and talk so negatively on it because it's 1 week. It can change. But the evidence has just been growing, and it's so hard to ignore what's there.
Yeah. Riley O'Brien looked like a bloody Brownlow medalist in that ruck slot. The only comment I'll make on that, the Chincotta thing, I feel like is a little bit of a hindsight. Like, for me, I was happy with us trying something different down back, and I think it could have worked if our entire midfield wasn't so shit. 3 kicks from Hewitt. Like, I don't know. I personally, I like the idea of us trying something different down there to try and replace Doc, but it just meant that everybody else had to step up, which they all stood down.
And then even on that, like, I guess like coaching decisions that you can question is like, why did Kennedy go to halfback?
Yeah, probably wouldn't be
that
Kennedy,
that to me just didn't seem to make sense. And it's funny because I thought when he did go back there, like he did look okay. He did take some nice intercept marks, but when you weren't winning it from the source, I can applaud them changing something, but it just seemed like a silly move to move him away from the ball and put him down back. It just didn't seem like the best decision that could have been made. And now that it obviously didn't 100% work, you can kind of question it.
What are you thinking with the inner midfield mix? Are you calling for a Dow attempt? Are you calling for something different? Or are you calling for let's just keep running back this same mix?
Yeah.
And just try different things with the same players?
I think that it needs some tinkering. Some. I don't want to go too big with it. My first thing would be Hewitt is either injured or he is the worst footballer I've ever seen and out of form.
He's got to be injured.
Either way, I'm thinking it's an injury and saying out of the team. Rest up. You've got some hand issue. You can't tackle. You're not getting the ball. You're no good to us doing what you're currently doing. And I would, because of that, I would be wanting to try something different. Who's playing the Hewitt role in the twos right now? Who is that in extractor, getting the hands on the clearances, and whether he's playing that well and we think he's going to fix the problems because he's got his negatives. He doesn't two-way run. It doesn't necessarily sort out everything. But what's something different we can currently do right now and that you might get a similar output right now? It's Paddy Dow. And I hate to pull this thing because how many times do we sit on here going, he's not the answer. He's not the answer. But right now it's something different. Yeah. And I want to see something different because we've tried the same thing for half a season last year and
me too.
A few games this year. Hasn't worked. I don't want Ed Curnow in there either because it's either Dow or Curnow that's going to be that player because you've got too many same players. I don't think he can do anything forward of the ball. His disposal's fucking killing us. I'm sorry, mate. If we've got an advantage, there needs to be a team rule that if Ed Curnow's got the ball, umpire, I want Vossi to go to the umpire and say, mate, if Ed Curnow's got the ball, it's not advantage. Do not let him take advantage. Take the ball and strip it off him and sub him out of the game if he thinks that that's a fucking good decision. I can't stand it.
He's not in there for us.
Why? You should be handballing it. Oh, exactly. And then apart from that, because I think you've got Cripps who's a gun, who had a down night. You've got Kennedy in there. I thought Cherry's been okay. I like Walsh around it. What I'd probably be trying to do right now, you need your big bulls in there, but it's complementing them with other players around it. So I'd be trying to get a different maybe mix at that half forward, whether that's your idea at the start of the season, getting Walsh a bit more high half forward, have him being that guy around the stoppage where you've got the Bulls, but they've got an option to handball it out to that isn't an out of form Zach Fisher. They've got someone out there. Bringing in potentially a Bins to add more run, to add a bit of pace, because he can play a bit of high half. He can play high half forward. I know he's a bit more of a winger, so you're adding a bit more into that rotation at half forward. It's a new face in there, but what the potential of him bringing in is that he can go to the wing. If you need to throw Hollins in there at a CBA, if you need to throw Akers in there as a different body, as a different something, to change things up, to change the rotations up, because that's what I'm trying to do. I think the Bins is a potential option that allows you to pull a few different levers. That's what I'd kind of be doing. And whether that is a Motlop's in there for one or a Durden's in there for one, there needs to be more complementary players around it. And there needs to be an emphasis on you're working harder. When we get that ball, burst. And I mean, the boys just need to stop fumbling. Like, I don't know what is going on confidence-wise, because if that doesn't happen, like, if we're not winning the ball, we're struggling to expand. So get better runners around that expansion and keep pushing it. Say, stop going to the ball, stop all running to the ball, hold your lines and get that structure back. But I think those are the little things I think we can do. Whether it works or it doesn't, it's something. It's something different. Because doing the same thing over and over again, definition of insanity, and I'm sick of saying it.
Cottrell?
He's not, I don't think he's fit, but he's again someone that I like as a potential half forward wing rotation that can do something. Like he's that. If we had him, if we had Boyd, if we had these guys, that'd be options for me to push guys like Fisher and whatnot potentially out of this team as an option that you can trust a bit more. But you can only select what you got, and that's the tough position we're currently in.
Very well said, mate. Very well said.
So I guess touching on a few more things. There are obviously negatives, but what are some other areas that you think we need to improve, we can improve, that you're kind of seeing from this game, seeing from this season, that you want to touch on in this game that have maybe grinded your gears here before we maybe go and try to touch on a couple of positives to kind of rattle this show off?
Oh God, I feel like you're going to have to take the wheel for both of these points, because I think we've covered the main ones for me. Like, and it's to your point about how this all could turn around so quickly. And I think we've even mentioned this on the show. Like, I truly think a lot of this is tinkering. I'm not at the tear it down like stage. Like, I think that there's some incremental things that can happen.
Yes.
And I think they're the things that we've spoken about how our midfield's playing, how we're delivering the ball inside 50, how our forwards are moving. So what do you have? Anything that we haven't covered?
Well, I firstly just want to say, like, that's the level-headedness I need on this podcast when I'm getting emotional, getting frustrated with a lot of things. Because, we've said it so many times. We can turn it around. And I agree. I don't think it is blow everything up, sack everyone, get everything ruined. It's okay. We think we're good enough, just little touches, and hopefully it can happen. But the last couple, I've got two little negatives I want to bring up. Firstly, tackling. I don't know what's happening, but we're just there's two things that
slippery.
Two things have annoyed me. One, we're just not strong enough in the tackle. We don't hold them. How many times is it like, perfect, we've made the stop. They get the handball out, it's done. And secondly, the thing that if I was a rich man, that TV in my living room would have been off the balcony. I would have had a lovely brand new TV this week because it would have copped it. But unfortunately, I'm too poor to afford that. So cooler heads prevailed. But if I see one more time that a Carlton player is approaching an opposition player with the ball, and the opposition player, like 0.5%, shifts their hips the opposite direction, and we've broken our ankles and we've lost the whole thing.
Past them.
How does that happen? Like, I genuinely cannot fathom, unfortunately, how bad we seem to be at judging players' movement. There was just too many passages of play where they shifted direction and we were like, oh, well, he's through. And that's just not at a standard. And the other thing was just touching on footy IQ. It seems to be the underlying feature of a lot of this, but sucked into the contest. We handball to people under pressure. Our kick and delivery inside 50 is dumb. Our movement is dumb. We don't work. We don't do anything. And then to top it off, deconing. Tommy. Sir.
Go off, King.
I don't want to see Radigalia out there. You want to play for Geelong? Were you watching too much Geelong? What are you doing? Seriously, mate. When the ball's there,
a drive-by.
If the ball is inside that 50 and you are on the goal line and you have the ability to punch the ball, I tell you where you don't punch it. I tell you where they teach you, like, first day of footy at Auskick. Hey, when the ball's here, there's about two places you don't want to put the ball. And it's this thing we like to call the hotspot. Don't punch it back into play into the goal square. And if you're going to punch it into the goal square, can you make sure it's not the one player that we all can't stand from fucking Adelaide, Ben Keys, with his stupid shit fucking haircut? We don't want to see him out there doing the fucking Rashford celebrations. I can't see that, Tommy. If there was a Hall of Shame this week, you were in it. You'd get my 3 votes for that.
Oh, bang.
Get out of there. I don't want to see that ever again. I hope he watches that vision, and I hope he did not enjoy the player review of that game, because it would have been pretty bad sitting there. Hopefully,
mate,
hopefully
that feels like your second viral TikTok. Clip that one up.
Just me abusing the players at this stage. Is that what drives the clicks? Maybe. But let's move on from that. Let's get some positivity in this. Let's try to finish this. For those that have stuck around through our rants, or my rants in particular, it was grim, but are there any little positives or anything that you saw from that game that you can go, okay, that wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen?
All right. Let me have a go at something here.
Yes.
Where could we go? What about this? Name a more underrated player than Nick Newman.
Oh, I can't.
Your
I can't
man.
do it. I can't do it. My best 22 superstar. No, he's literally number one on this list. The fact that he shut down a danger man for Adelaide, Isaac Rankin, kicked a goal in about the first 5 seconds of this game, and that was it. And if you had said that before the game, I think I would have said we've won the game by 80 points. He has not touched the ball. Unbelievable. Nick Newman has to be our best player so far this season. And I think he's very stiff that we don't do like a 5-4-3-2-1 or a rating everyone, because there's a few weeks he's probably missed out where he would be probably leading our vote tally at this stage.
Good call.
But I mean, for a guy that often gets spoken about at that age, I think he's just turned 30 or he's around that age where you go, we're moving past these players. He's been a bit of a somewhat fringe for us at stages. I don't think he's ever, and judging by me not having him dumbly, I'm happy to cop this one in my best 22 at the start of the season. But that's the thing. Like, he's been in that conversation, and what he's been able to do so far this season, lock down that small defender spot. I mean, he is just unbelievable and playing some great footy. And I wish a few of the other boys in this team could be a bit of a Nick Newman out there, because we need it.
Well, that's done me for positives. Over to you.
I got two more. I got a couple. One, Sammy Walsh. Came back, and it was like he never left. He was one of the shining lights in that game. Obviously, midfield wasn't amazing, but I thought he was quite solid. And for that, and adding something different, the fact that hopefully, fingers crossed, touch the wood in this room, looks like he's gotten through unscathed. For him to do that in his first game back is unbelievable, and I'm just happy we've got Sammy Walsh back in. And the other one is just a shout out to Ollie Hollands. For a guy touching on the draft and all of this and what the list is, to have a guy who's 5 games into his AFL career, 18-year-old, for me, driving standards of intensity, of pressure, of work rate, everything you could want from a player, and in a massive loss, there was about 4 people that could hold their heads high in this game, maybe 5. I think Hollands is one of them, and I just wanted to shout at him because he, in particular, it wasn't perfect. Yeah. I don't expect him to be perfect, but I thought his effort and intensity, when I wasn't getting that from our leaders, I wasn't getting that from Cripper, wasn't getting that from Wiedering. Hats off to the 18-year-old driving the standards out there, impressing.
We're starved of positivity here, so I'm interested to know who your other head-held high candidates would be, if you have them off the top of your head.
I will, and we'll pivot and go to votes, and I'll say the last 2. How do you like that? I've given my 3 votes to Nick Newman. I've given 2 to Walsh. Surprising in a game where I thought our midfield was rubbish, I've given the 1 to Adam Chera. I thought he was actually decent, and I think he's been decent this year. And I was hoping his game could kind of go to a bit more of a different level with a few plays in. Maybe that's the tinkering that needs to happen. But I thought Chera was quite decent. And then the other 2 I'm giving Ollie Hollands, and I thought Charlie Curnow battled hard. Like, the entry that him and Harry were getting, the fact that they bail us out that many times, taking those big marks where they shouldn't, I thought he gets a couple of goals there. I don't think he could have done much wrong. Nothing was his fault. Maybe, apart from that one-handed reach when we needed a goal, maybe that takes a vote off him there, running into the goal square. That pissed me off a little bit, but I think he applied himself all game. I guess, I kind of want to see your 3, and was there anyone else that you could say that if we were doing ratings, who gets above a 0? Because those are probably my fault.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't really thought about Kerner like that, but you're right. Like I said, I'm not putting the blame on those guys, and so I'll take your point there. I went 3 Walsh, 2 Newman. But I totally get why you would have Newman first. And maybe this was a little bit of just I missed you syndrome, but I thought he ate a lot. Have I missed him? Oh my God. I had to lock myself out of Twitter because I knew what would be going down on there.
Yeah, I was thinking.
I went 1 for Akers. I think again, like with all these guys, was far from perfect. But I thought he was amongst it. And he was actually just someone that was, I don't know, doing a bit.
Yeah. But wings do not seem a problem anymore. Let's go back to the days where our midfield was good, but our wingers were shit. Can we switch that up, please?
Yeah, that was way better.
I think that was a much better thing. But look, we'll wrap this episode up. And I don't know if this is positive, but maybe it can add a bit of laughter, a bit of joy to finish this off. It's everyone's favorite segment, definitely. Let's get ready. Let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the ceremony of ceremonies. Straighten your tie, adjust your monocle, and raise a pinky for the navy blue corner Hall of Fame. Well, Lockie, the ties are on, but in fashion that was this week, we're not doing things simple because the boys don't deserve me putting on the tie in correct fashion. For those that are on listening to this stream, it's on my head.
I like it. A good pivot.
Look, it was a difficult one for the Hall of Fame. We're trying to bring a bit of joy, and maybe this is kind of the segment that we need a bit more. And I feel like we've maybe let ourselves down because I was out there and I forgot to ask the listeners. So I'll put my hand up there. I maybe didn't have the application and mentality that I should have this week. And unfortunately, unless you've got something for me now, I think Lockie, 2 weeks in a row, has not brought anything to the table. He cops a drive-by this week, but I'll put him under the pump. Oh, is that 2 ties?
No,
almost looks like it's just the one.
I had to scarf up as well. I'm a bit ashamed of myself. I've been so negative today. I still love this club, and we're still going to win the flag, so it's fine.
Unfortunately, the Hall of Fame's a bit of a negative one, but maybe we can have a bit of laughter at it. I would like to induct this week, and considering it's our only nominee, it goes straight in unless there's a big veto that does happen on your part.
We'll see. Hey, we'll see.
It could happen. Anything could happen in the Hall of Fame. It's no holds barred. I would like to induct this week calf tightness into the navy blue corner Hall of Fame because I don't know what's going on. We thought that COVID was a pandemic. Muscle tightness may have taken the cake for that one because, look, I think I'm a little bit happy that we haven't called it awareness because if they trotted out the use of calf or hamstring awareness, I think I would have deleted. I think my phone would have gone over the balcony.
Podcast?
I think it would have deleted everything because calling something like muscle awareness is the weirdest word for anything. Because if they're not aware of their muscles by now, if Gov is not aware of his soft tissue issues now, then we've lost the plot. But calf tightness is there because it currently, Lockie, I'd like to rattle this off for you.
Go on.
Mitch McGovern,
I don't want to
Jack Martin, Caleb Marchbank, all suffering from this condition, debilitating condition called calf tightness. Now, if that's anything to go by, Martin, it was a test. He's just a bit tight, boys. Haven't seen him so far. Don't know when he's ever going to play again. Marchbank, calf tightness. Same thing. He could be done. He could be delisted. I don't know what's going on. And McGovern, he's missed 1 week. It could be the season. I don't know. This calf tightness may be worse than an ACL at this stage. And to throw out the tightness even further, there's 2 more players in the tightness bandwagon. They haven't torn it. Again, it's just a bit tight, just a bit sore. I wish they'd torn it at this stage. Matty Owies is one that has the hamstring tightness. And again, we haven't seen him for a while. It's starting to push out. When's his return? I don't think the club know. Their injury reports are great. And then, unfortunately, the newest member of this is unfortunately Adam Sard, which makes me nervy about the selection this week because if he's gone down and we've had Mitch McGovern miss a week, how long could Adam Sard be out with hamstring tightness? But does the word tightness go into the Hall of Fame this week? Because I think if I've said it that many times, it almost has to be etched in. I think the guy writing it in on the board behind me has already got it on the board.
I'll allow it. Get it in there.
Nailed it.
Is it I know that you like to play doctor sometimes. That's always your little fantasy.
Doctor? Okay, here we go.
Is this like does tightness mean, well, there's nothing really wrong, but you're telling me that it hurts and I can't run. Is that what this is? Like,
I mean, is
it an injury?
What is tightness? Well, I mean, that's the question because you'd think tightness couldn't be something that is a more than a 1 week injury. Because you think if it's more than 1 week, it's a tear or it's a strain. Maybe they're just replacing the word strain with, oh, well, it's tight.
Yeah.
Because it just seems
semantics.
It is genuinely the weirdest thing I think I've heard in football that it's been more than like a week thing. Like I've no, like to go the other way, I have no issue with them before the game looking at Gov and being like, he's pulling up a little bit sore here, pulling up a bit lame. I'd rather him not tear it. And same with Sardi, because that is finally maybe a little bit better injury management on the front of these players. But for it to now be 2 weeks, 3 weeks for a few of these players is very, very concerning. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe they just need to suck it up, to be honest. Play hurt.
Who plays first for Carlton? March.
Oh, that's good. As out of just Marchbank and Martin?
To play again. No, sorry. Marchbank and Cunningham.
Oh. I reckon both are done. I reckon both are done. But like I would double down on both.
Again.
I will double down that both are gone delisted. It wouldn't surprise me.
Wow.
If with Marchie at the moment, that they've even told him. I don't know. There are no sources here. I'm definitely not involved in the club at all, but that is just something that wouldn't surprise me. But if you want me to get off the fence,
yeah, I'd love you to.
Because both I've thrown off the fence. It's Cunningham somehow.
Wow. Okay, interesting. No, this is the time to get this.
I wish they were both fit and healthy.
Of course, this is the perfect time to put these theories out there, mate. If who's listening now? We're over an hour in. Who knows?
Not me, clearly.
we know that Marchbank is at least real still. Well, I guess Cunningham played a quarter, didn't he?
I saw him out there.
What is going on? Oh,
at least the shoulder's not the issue now. That's
at the start of the season. I think it was like, what's the most important thing that we need this season? Some health.
What have we not got, Lockie, so far?
It's not the reason why we played this game, but far out. We didn't touch on McGovern, really. We said that Plowman shouldn't have been in. God, that man is so important. I know we're burying it 70 minutes in now, but far out.
Losing him and Doc does not help. The just on-field leadership and structure, and we definitely missed Gov's attempted ball movement. Even if he stuffs it up, his immediate thought is like, get the ball moving. I want to get this going. And we definitely
I love it.
Lost that. And it's when you don't have your best players out there, like Adelaide, I don't think they even have any injuries to a lot of any key personnel. I can't think of anyone they really have out at the moment. And that does make a bit of a difference, but there is still clearly other issues that are at play rather than just injury, but it doesn't help you in. I mean, if you want to get into some strength and conditioning chat at some stage, whether it's his fault or not for the injuries, I would say right now that the way that we are running on the ground, the way that our work rate is, whether that's standards mentality or what, there's one man who's out of contract at the end of this season that I think he's going to get shoved because of this. And that is Mr. Russell himself.
They are.
Because Adelaide, they've got Burgess, they've got the king. And we thought we had the king, but we don't, unfortunately. It's disappointing.
Hugh Bond has done his knee, and that's the only one on their injury list at the moment. So,
no,
can you recruit? Bondy.
Yeah. Disappointing. But look, there's always next week. And if you're still listening to this one, we're going to try and be positive from this point onwards, because this game's done now. We've had our rant. We've had our depressing chat. It's time to look ahead at St Kilda. They don't have a forward line. Caminiti's decided he doesn't want to be there forward. He's knocked out a bloke, and so we're ready to go. We're ready to exploit the Sainers. Who needs Ross the boss? We didn't want him anyway, and we don't need him. Lockie, jump in, get the hype going.
I just want to jump in. I didn't want to interrupt your final part of your thing. So I just wanted to say one thing about this episode if people are still listening, because just a little bit of mini reflection myself. I hope people aren't feeling disappointed that you and I are often try and be very optimistic throughout these times. And I hope people can appreciate that we're not just like, we're keeping it real with how we feel week to week. We're not trying to give a fake narrative where we just speak our thoughts. And so, kind of apologies if people thought that this was a down episode, because I don't want it to be that way, but we're just telling it how we feel. That's all.
That's the clip there. That's the promo clip of the week. That's it. Because I think what we've always tried to do, we always try to have a positive spin. That's what we have tried to do here in trying to still look at things somewhat realistic, that like this could change, definitely can change. We got time to work on this. It's round 5. We can still build into this season and fix it. But We're just going to come
We're
on
still
here
the
and
top
give
four.
our exactly, mate. We've only lost one game of the season, and who cares? It's Adelaide away. Don't worry about it. But we can just only be honest on here and try to get some therapy done. And with that out of the way, we're looking forward to next week. We'll be back with our match build-up episode throughout this week. Keep your eyes on the socials. Don't miss out. I've buried this one again, so sorry, Lockie. I feel like I did well at the start of the season, and now I've thrown away any goodwill I had. But at Navy Blue Corner, like, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Follow if you are on the streaming services. TikTok, we're on now. We're doing some memes. If you like Simpsons content mixed with Carlton, that's what I'm going to try to do. That's what we're going to try to do on here. And I haven't been paying attention to our Apple podcast reviews. There may be some out there, but if you're still listening, that means you're a big listener. That means you are an OG, a number one, maybe even a day oneer. Get on Apple Podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. If it's 5 stars, I'll read anything you say in there. Even if it's like Ian's a big dickhead, I'll be reading that live on there. Maybe keep it polite so then the people will look at the reviews and want to listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
But if it's 5 stars and you write something nice, I will read it out here on the podcast. I will make a promise to you guys. But that is going to wrap this episode up. We'll be back for that match build-up. Keep your eyes peeled. We're going to beat the Sainers. We're up and about. Who cares about this week? The Baggers are back. Cripper's going to come out with 40 possessions and 17,000 goals. The Baggers are going to rock Marvel Stadium. See you guys next time.